In the heartland of America, where the tendrils of the Old World and New Age interlace, lay the city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, a simulacrum of comfort cradled in the tight arms of the Midwest, its quaint charm deceptively painted over the complex canvas of life. Amidst this parochial landscape toiled Elijah Grayson, a young journalist bearing the countenance of someone carrying a mountain within. His eyes, still sharp beneath the burdensome shadow of weariness, bore an unwavering resolve, a testament to a spirit embattled yet undaunted. He was a good man, generous in his empathy and persistent in his pursuit of truth, but each night as he returned to his small apartment, a quiet dread stirred within him, the ghost of addiction reaching out from its grave within his heart. The mornings were spent covering stories of stolen bicycles and town fairs, punctuated by sips of bitter coffee and the subtle tremors of his hands. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world donned its darker shades, he would find himself drawn, moth-like, towards a looming edifice of the Church of the Silent Sacrament. It was not the grandeur of the Gothic steeple that fascinated him, nor the chorus of whispers that filled the nave, but rather a sinister enigma that clung to the parishioners like a shroud. "Haven't you noticed, Grayson?" murmured Sam, an old photographer from the Fort Wayne Gazette, under the dull hum of the office fluorescent lights. "People around that church, they change." "In what way?" Elijah queried, the echo of a trauma-tinted past resounding in the hollows of his mind. I can't quite put my finger on it," Sam admitted, his weathered hands fluttering like two lost birds. "One day they're Joe Schmo from down the block, and the next, they're strangers in familiar skin." These words coursed through Elijah's veins, pumping an inky curiosity into his heart. His past bore the marks of depression, each episode a skirmish lost in the war against his inner demons. The realm of the mind was a familiar battleground to him, a mire where he had wrestled both his sanity and self. And now he sensed a similar battle brewing, not within himself, but in the quiet city that he called home. In the following days, he found himself observing the congregants of the Silent Sacrament, the way they interacted, their subtle shifts in demeanor, and their peculiar prosperity. He saw how the light in their eyes dimmed and brightened in strange intervals, and the unseasoned affluence that emerged out of thin air. This was Fort Wayne, Indiana, a city seemingly trapped in a paradox of normality, yet veined with an undercurrent of the inexplicable. At its heart stood the Church of the Silent Sacrament, an institution marinated in mystery. And peering into this abyss was Elijah Grayson, a journalist wrestling with his inner demons, perched precariously on the edge of a revelation that promised to shatter his world. Fort Wayne, under the gaze of the sun, was an idyllic postcard brought to life. But under the scrutiny of the moon, it was a puzzle box of shadows, its innocence eroding like sand against the relentless tide of the night. Within this chiaroscuro played Elijah, his heart pounding out a rhythm that echoed against the unseen walls of the mystery he was weaving himself into. His journalistic pursuits were no longer confined to the waking hours. They bled into the twilight, where he found himself, notebook in hand, observing the Church of the Silent Sacrament. Its Gothic silhouette, so imposing under the sun, assumed an ethereal quality under the diaphanous moonlight, a beacon to the lost and the wandering. On one such night, a soft glow beckoned him from the basement of the church. Shadows danced against the stained glass windows, painting the edifice with tales of clandestine gatherings. A clandestine gathering that whispered the words, "We are the vessels. We are the conduits of the Samarian void." The congregation's gatherings were not of prayer or fellowship. They were feasts of obscurity, indulgences in a substance that lent their eyes an otherworldly shimmer, as if each iris were a cosmos unto itself. It was during one such gathering that he tasted the bitter tang of recognition. The substance bore an uncanny resemblance to the same addiction he grappled with in the recesses of his solitude. "I thought they were just stories," Alice, a friendly barista from his favorite coffee shop, whispered to him one chilly morning. Her words curled into the air like smoke, each syllable heavy with a strange dread. "Stories? About the Silent Sacrament, about how they communicate with God. Not just any God, Grayson, but something ancient, something dark. His own memories of addiction roared back to life, paralleling the compulsion he now observed in the congregants. He could taste it, the metallic tang of obsession on the tip of his tongue. Alice's revelations spun an insidious thread, weaving itself into the tapestry of his consciousness. Investigation slipped into obsession. The mundanity of his days began to unravel, each thread pulled, leading him deeper into the cryptic narrative of the Silent Sacrament. He was falling, tumbling headlong into a universe he barely understood, his own identity becoming as mutable as the stories he was unraveling. The congregation, the substance, the Silent Sacrament, all were pieces of a cosmic puzzle, fragments of an emerging horror. The echoes of the clandestine gatherings reverberated in the hollow of his dreams, intertwining his reality with the unknown and binding him to an undulating entity that was yet to reveal itself completely. Fort Wayne, under the morning sun, still held its bucolic charm. But now, under the veil of darkness, it was a stage for a drama of cosmic proportions. With Elijah teetering on the precipice of a vast abyss, the unseen facets were revealing themselves, each new discovery pulling him deeper into the gathering storm. As dawn unfurled its golden fingers over Fort Wayne, it was as though the cosmos was painting a mockery of tranquility. Elijah, emerging from a night spent poring over his notes, felt the disquiet of the city resonate within him. In this quiet corner of the world, beneath its benign facade, a monstrous secret seethed, burrowing its tendrils into the marrow of the Silent Sacrament. The church and its congregants, once a symbol of community and shared faith, now were signposts in a landscape of horrors. The substance they consumed, the eerie chants, the shifting personalities, it was all part of a chilling tableau revealing the contours of a malevolent deity, a deity they had come to know as the Samarian Void. The Void was not a god of old scriptures. It was an entity from the farthest reaches of the cosmos, an alien darkness that fed on the consciousness of its worshippers. The substance they ingested was no mere drug, but a key, opening the lock of the human mind to the Void's insidious influence. This revelation sent a tremor through him. His mind was a battlefield, a maelstrom of facts and fears where the borders of reality blurred. His grip on sanity slipped inch by terrifying inch as he grappled with the understanding of the entity's true nature. "Grayson, you're not yourself," warned Sam one dreary afternoon at the Gazette, his expression a tangle of concern and confusion. "You've got that look, the same one the Sacrament folk have." "The look?" Elijah asked, a flicker of dread sparking in his heart. "Like you're here but not here. Like you're reaching for something just out of sight." His words hung in the air, a spectral mirror reflecting Elijah's inner turmoil. The echoes of his past addiction merged with the horrors unfolding before him, amplifying his despair. He was no longer just a spectator. He was now a participant in the monstrous narrative that the Silent Sacrament was penning. His dreams were no longer his own. Instead, they became fractured landscapes of alien constellations, filled with the echoing chants of the sacrament's congregants and the swirling void of the deity they served. Reality and nightmare wove together, forming a tapestry of terror that consumed his every waking moment. In this descent into madness, he found himself questioning the line that separated him from the sacrament's congregants. The boundary between investigator and participant blurred, and his identity morphed in the reflection of the Void's dark mirror. The days bled into one another, a delirious whirl of revelation and horror. Once a beacon of resolve, he was now adrift in the current of cosmic terror. His personal journey of overcoming addiction echoed in the plight of the congregants. Both were lost in the labyrinth of the mind, bound to the darkness that promised a deceptive liberation. As he succumbed further to his obsession, he stood on the precipice of an abyss that promised an even deeper revelation. The descent into madness was just beginning, and he found himself drawn, unwilling yet compelled, into the consuming mouth of the Samarian Void. The nights in Fort Wayne bore no comfort, for the stars above were mirrors of a cold and indifferent cosmos, their twinkling facades belying the abyss that lurked beyond. Against this celestial tapestry, Elijah stood. his silhouette a stark monument to a man caught in the relentless grasp of an ancient terror. His pursuit of truth had led him down a path marred by the footprints of gods and monsters, into a landscape where his own sanity waned like a winter's sun. He found himself returning to the Church of the Silent Sacrament, night after night, drawn in like a moth to a spectral flame. He walked its hallowed halls with a spectral weight on his shoulders, each step bringing him closer to an undeniable revelation. The congregants were not merely communicating with the Samarian void, they were becoming it. In the shadows of the church, beneath the watchful gaze of the stained glass saints, he found himself confronted with the substance that had been the church's unholy sacrament. The congregants, each an echo of his own struggle with addiction, were willingly dissolving their identities to serve a deity they believed transcended human comprehension. Haunted by the cruel irony, he felt the cold specter of his past whispering in his ear. His own battle against addiction was reflected in the faces of the congregants, each lost in the throes of a mind-enhancing drug that promised liberation but delivered only subjugation. The boundaries between his identity and the congregation's plight blurred until he found himself teetering on the edge of a precipice. In the end, it was desperation that led him to the altar of the void. With trembling hands, he consumed the sacrament, welcoming the bitter tang of the substance as it trickled down his throat. It was an act of surrender, an admission that his battle against the dark deity had become indistinguishable from his personal war against his demons. The world twisted and heaved around him, reality becoming a swirling tempest under the substance's influence. The void unfurled within him, its tendrils reaching into the very core of his being. He could feel his identity dissolving, his consciousness merging with the cosmic darkness. "I am Elijah Grayson," he whispered into the maelstrom, his voice a lone beacon amidst the storm. But the void swallowed his words, leaving only an echoing silence. His eyes, once bright with resolve and curiosity, now mirrored the cold, indifferent stars. He was no longer just Elijah, but a vessel, a conduit of the Samarian void. In his final moments, he realized that the boundary between man and deity, between addiction and devotion, was as thin and mutable as the veil between sleep and wakefulness. His body, now an empty shell, slumped onto the cold marble floor of the church. He had fallen to the same fate as the congregants of the Silent Sacrament. His death served as a chilling epilogue to his quest for truth, a somber monument to the tragic inevitability of surrender in the face of cosmic horror. As dawn broke over Fort Wayne, the Church of the Silent Sacrament stood unchanging against the backdrop of a new day, its secret held within the confines of its stone walls. The cosmic terror continued to unfurl beneath the shroud of normality, a silent testament to the poignant tale of Elias Grayson, a man who had dared to stare into the abyss only to become it. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.